Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Murph Codes front-end web development tutorial. Last time, we learned a bit about layouts. Specifically, how to do them, how to make our web page look good, how to make our web page still look good on multiple screen sizes. I did change a couple things from last time. Off stream. One, I fixed the sticky function of our header. All right. You might be wondering, what are you talking about? Sticky function? Well, if you remember, in the header, we were going to use the position sticky, and it didn't do anything. Well, that's because I forgot to add where we wanted that position to remain sticky. So, yeah. You have to, if you're using position, you have to give it a position by assigning a top, left, bottom, or right something. If you don't assign it anything, it's going to be like, yeah, okay. So, we're going to ignore you now because you're not doing it right. But that's where we ended up with that. Trying to think what else we did. I think that was it. Um, Polished up our aside and navs a little bit. One thing I wanted to show you is here, when we get to mobile view, notice how the nav bar breaks no matter what we do. Like, we're not going to be able to get these links to line up and look good in a straight line on a tiny, tiny screen. So, one of the things we were going to talk about was how do we get, instead of this, how do we get a little pop out navigation bar? You know, something we hit a little hamburger menu icon that's conveniently up in the corner, and then that brings up, oh, excuse me, brings up our navigation. Also, notice our aside and our main are really looking cramped in there. What if we could do something about that? You know, maybe just hide this section for now, or, put it, you know, underneath the header or something in kind of a different formation. Uh Today we're going to try to address a couple of those. Now, I also wanted to show you this. This is what the page looks like on my phone. Like, I actually brought it up on my phone and took a screenshot so you can see we're still getting the exact same thing there. I went to portrait mode or landscape mode, so you can see when the screen is held sideways, we're getting more of a this action, which is acceptable. This is a screenshot I took on the desktop, which, I just went full screen with it. So that's to give you three different views as they show on the devices. Like, I know you've seen this one on the stream before, but for comparison, those other two, those are legitimately taken on a phone. So all the things I've been showing you that we're doing, yeah, that's what it does. But yeah, so this is where the cell phone size held in landscape mode takes over. And this is where it ends up being in um, mobile view. So, uh, let's see here. So today, I don't need those anymore. I was just going to show those to you and get rid of them now. Today, we are going to start learning about JavaScript because one of the things we want to do, we want to take this this navigation bar and hide it in mobile view, but then we also want a little icon we can click on to bring it up, make a full pop out thing. These are effects we can accomplish in JavaScript, or at least finish in JavaScript. We could hide this in the mobile view without JavaScript. We would just put um, navbar, display, hidden. Let's see, what are we using there? Block. And we want to make sure we do this in all of our media queries just to make sure we're overriding that hidden for the different types. All right. What does that look like now? There we go. Gotta remember to do that every time. Why is that not hiding? Is it position? No, it's not position. Pretty sure. Yeah, no, it's not position. None. None. That's what it is. It's none. All right. Now you see it. Now you don't. Now you see it. Now you don't. There it is. There it isn't. It's there. It's gone. What? 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 I know I'm being weird. But basically, what we've done here is we have taken an element out of the flow of our page. And as you can see, this actually does improve the look of our mobile design a little bit. Little bit. Now we also wanted to change this. All right, so we're gonna copy this though. We're gonna put this in our other two media queries. We're gonna change that. Whoop. Now what this should do is it should take this section and span the entire length. Hey. Now we also want to do that with this, but we want to go down to here where we're declaring our main width and just make sure we have a width for each of those. And here, go 100%. Okay. That also looks better in the mobile view. How does it fare on the other ones? Let's see. Oh, hey, that looks pretty much exactly like it did before. And still looks the same as it did before. But it's when it gets to mobile view that it becomes perfectly readable. Very nice, right? So this is what we're talking about with responsive web development. We have a page that takes into consideration the screen size it's working with and chooses a better layout based on that screen size. Because here, I mean, we got enough room that we can have a pretty decent main column width, but we have our little navigation here off to the side, so that navigating within this is easy enough task. And we have our navigation bar to get to other pages in our site, because in this view, we have space for that. We have the room. In this view, we definitely have the room. In this view, though, things start to get a little cramped. So we have to adjust the size. We have to take some elements out of their normal working flow, put them somewhere else, maybe even hide them. But now you're probably wondering, okay, so we got rid of that navigation bar thing. Excuse me. How are people supposed to navigate the page now? Smart guy. Well, you've probably seen this on a lot of pages. The three little lines, and then when you click on them, it usually opens up some kind of settings or navigation thing to get to other parts of the page. Like when you're on Facebook uses that. I believe Twitter on some part of the app has this icon, or did. There's also the three dots, which is the kebab menu. And that's the dot dot dot. That's the one that's generally for settings. Welcome to the chat, Ube and Knitting Link. Good to see you. Got a little bit of a late start today. I'm feeling just a shade under the weather, but we're muscling through. And right now, what we're covering... Yeah, there we go. Is how to add our navigation menu back in to the layout in mobile view. Oh, you know what? I just realized I'm still on my title screen. Ta-da! I don't need the death counter. This is code. Nobody's gonna die today. We hope. We hope nobody's gonna die today. And there we go. Ugh. So anyway, as I said, feeling a little under the weather, but I did it to myself because I should have known better. Those longtime viewers of my channel know that last summer I moved into a little basement apartment. The air circulation down here is not great. The ventilation is poor at best. But I've been trying to make space for a photo studio, because I'm trying to get back into photography. I used to be a professional photographer way back when. The progression of things, the progression of my life story, my story arc here. All throughout high school, I was a huge computer nerd. Tested out of every computer program course that I was thrown into within like the first 2 weeks of the class, because I liked having study halls. So I would take the computer courses on the agreement with that I would be able to test out of them, because I knew the coding teacher, the computer courses teacher, well enough to know that she would let me test out of them. So, my senior year, what I did was I took my standard mandatory English class as like the last class of the day. And then, because I had completed all of my prerequisites, I just loaded up the rest of my schedule with computer courses. And 2 weeks into my senior year, I tested out of everything. So I had pretty much study halls from the time I got to school until my English class at the end of the day. And I would spend that time running around the school with a camera, taking pictures, because years previous, my mom had completed her graphic arts degree. And as part of her college education, she had taken photography. And she let me have the textbooks when she was done, and the camera. And so I taught myself photography using these old textbooks and her old 35mm single lens Minolta camera. I had a great time. I learned all about darkroom development and whatnot. Everybody thought that I was in camera club, so like nobody really had a problem with me sneaking into classrooms and getting pictures and stuff. They all just assumed I was working for the yearbook. Nobody asked questions. Nobody asked any questions. They're just like, oh, it's that guy. He's got a camera. Okay, he's probably just here to take some yearbook pictures. As long as he doesn't bother anybody, we're not going to kick him out. So, I just went around and did whatever the heck I wanted. And then I'd spend as much time in the darkroom as I want. All I had to do was, show up for English class, and, everything was kosher. Then I went off to college, and my first semester I majored in psychology. Had a really horrible time because I had terrible roommate, sanitation staff went on strike, and 9/11 started off my first semester, and my cousin's funeral ended my first semester. So wasn't a great time that first semester. When I finally went back to school the following year, because I took a semester off because that was just a terrible experience all around, I decided I wanted something that was a little less like, okay, you're gonna have to commit to, the next third of your life being in college and learning stuff. Oh, it was a rough year, let me tell you. The second half of the year, the semester that I took off, was actually pretty awesome. I spent that entire semester playing video games and partying with a rock band. Like, it was awesome. I was actually their web developer guy, maintaining their website and whatnot. Little local garage band. They had a small following. they'd show up at local venues and put on a pretty fun show. It was amazing. Yes, I did study psychology for one semester. One semester I studied psychology. I learned a lot, but, like, I'm not gonna say I'm anywhere near a psychologist or anything, but, like, I had a pretty decent psychology teacher. Anyway, my second year of college, I went for a major in media communications, I think it was called. Excuse me a second. Sneezing fit. Sorry, kicked up a lot of dust, like I said. But anyway, radio, television, and film. I bought myself a camcorder, started making little student films and whatnot. Had fun with that. Me and a friend were hoping to go into oh, you can be lazy and study psychology. Trust me, it's fine, Ube. Just, like, buy a few books. And Paycology isn't far off. Anyway, a friend of mine and I had this crazy idea that maybe we would go into making movies together. Independent films, nothing real major, just, being able to tell the kind of stories we wanted to be able to tell in the way that we wanted to be able to tell them. He was a huge comic books nerd, so was I. We got along great. We spent a lot of our time arguing about, various stupid things. But, after a while, like, that whole idea didn't seem like it was really gonna pan out. I mean, mostly because, like, much as we both liked movies, it was clear he liked the kind of movies where he could cast himself as the hero all the time. And, like, I felt that was a little too narcissistic, Like, I could never do that. If I'm gonna make a movie, I'm gonna cast somebody who can act to be the hero of the story. I'm not going to be the hero of the story. I might put myself in my own movie, but I'm certainly not the main role. I'm certainly not, because I don't have that kind of acting ability. And honestly, I didn't feel like he did either. But the type of stories that he wanted to write were the kind of things that, like, your emo 16-year-old self would write to make yourself feel better about things. After you're 20 years old, you look back at that stuff and it's real cringy, And so it's like, maybe not. Maybe that's not the direction we're gonna go in. Besides that, hit the end of that year and I ran out of money. So I wasn't able to continue pursuing that career even if I wanted to. Or at least not on an education track that was costing $20,000 a year. Because, yeah, it racked up real fast. Anyway, after that year, I had to transfer to a different school again, because I couldn't afford another semester at the school that I was at, especially since they had just gone, like, Division 1 or whatever the heck it is. I don't know. I don't follow sports, but apparently their team was considered one of the big leagues now. So tuition went through the freaking ceiling. And they tried to argue that, oh no, you'd still be able to afford it and blah, blah, blah. And with this whole being able to, be Division I thing, we're going to have so many more resources and whatnot. You're going to get so much more for your education. All of it bullshit. Because the only thing that they were focused on at that point was their sports teams. They didn't care about the rest of the school. All of their scholarships and whatnot were strictly aimed at being able to recruit, more athletes. Because they wanted more star talent. Now that they were in the big leagues, that's where they were focusing their resources. So, I looked at my options, and I decided that I wanted something that I could be done, get a career, and just, get on with life for a while. And it was certainly not a career choice I ever would have considered otherwise. But I decided I'd become a trucker. Over the road, 18-wheeler, long haul truck driver. Took a semester-long course to get my CDL, get in the necessary, experience behind the wheel of a big rig, so that, despite my young age, I could still stand a chance of getting hired by some company somewhere. It was kind of fun, actually. A lot more fun than I anticipated it would ever be. I have to give credit to my truck driving instructor for that one. He made it interesting. And he was a good guy. He understood the challenges of being able to operate a big rig within the confines of the law, because the law was always changing, and the law was always written by people who did not understand how trucking worked, how logistics worked. They were always coming up with these weird rules that they felt made things safer without really understanding what it was they were doing, where the focus was. And so he showed us the, here's how, under this particular rule set, you would definitely want to be operating your schedule in order to, long haul from point A to point B and still be able to, make this a profitable run, that kind of thing. And, he really showed us the science behind it, behind the road weight limits and stuff, and it was a very fun class. I learned a lot. I even helped a guy get past his phobia of backing a 50-foot trailer. One of my classmates, he absolutely froze. Like, you've heard of people being frozen in fear. This guy absolutely would freeze, like complete statue mode, the minute he realized it's time to back the trailer. And keep in mind, he's sitting in the driver's seat of an 18-wheeler, frozen, while it's running. So, not entirely a great situation to be in. But I did help him with his phobia. And by the end of the year, he was actually able to pass his driving test. Backed every trailer that we had access to without any problem after a few successful runs, and yeah, he got past it. It was kind of cool. But the way that I did that was I literally hung outside of the truck door on the driver's side and talked to him as he was backing the trailer. Just gave him reassurance, told him, you're gonna be fine, you've got this, nice and slow, got all the room in the world, you're not gonna run into anything, you're gonna be alright, just pay attention to what I tell you, you'll be fine. Just kept it real mellow, real calm. He was able to get past his frozen in fear state and just listen to what I was telling him. Followed exactly. A few times of that, and he was ready to try it on his own. And, yeah, he was backing trailers around corners and stuff like a champ, no problem. So, that was a fun time. What was really funny, though, is I graduated from this trucking class with a CDL, and I did get hired by a company, and I think I was with them for maybe a month. Not very long. My trucking career was very short. Anyway, the company that I was with, I'm not going to name any names. I don't want to get sued or anything. This is a public platform. I don't know. It's one that here in America, you see them on the roads everywhere. But if you knew how things worked on the other side within the company, you would be terrified to share the road with them. You would. You would be absolutely terrified. Their hiring practice is atrocious. Here in the United States, pretty much all of the signs are in English. And in the few places where they're not in English, they're in, English/Spanish. Those are pretty much the only signs you're going to see. At the time I got hired, my orientation class into the company to ensure that we knew what we were doing, we were safe to drive, all that stuff. It was me, one other natural-born citizen, and like 10 Nigerians. And of those 10 Nigerians, 8 of them actually spoke a lick of English. Now, I'm not one for saying, hey, we shouldn't have immigrants coming over and, taking our jobs or anything like that. Because, no, I totally understand. Immigrants are a boon to our economy, and, yeah. But there are some jobs that it really pays to know English. Okay? And one of those is driving, because you have to be able to read the street signs. You have to. Otherwise, you are going to get lost, or you are definitely going to screw up. So it made me a bit nervous. One of the guys in the orientation class did not make it all the way through orientation, because even the company's HR person, who was basically just rubber stamping everyone as good to go, could not bring herself to approve putting this person in a truck, because his response to everything was to just say yes. You happy to be here today? Yes. Do you know how to drive? Yes. Are you an elephant? Yes. Like, he would just say yes to everything. That was the only thing he knew how to do. And they were going to put this guy behind the wheel of the truck. Kind of scary. This company also had a fairly terrifying accident rating. It had gotten to the point where no company would actually insure them, so they started their own insurance company. How does an elephant get a driver's license? That was kind of the problem back then. They would go through courses similar to mine, but not similar to mine, where basically it's see, mine was actually put on by a community college, and it took a full semester, and it was taught by a guy who used to own his own trucking company. A dude who had experience driving in 48 states, and this whole history of experience to lean on and impart on us. These guys apparently were getting theirs from 2-week courses that they could take pretty much online if they wanted to, and they could actually get their CDL without spending any time learning how to actually drive a truck. And then they would go to these places where they would just get rubber stamped to be good to drive. So, hey, my career path, my path to learning all of this stuff goes through all of that. Like, I know watching the VOD is going to be really messed up. But the point of my story here is you can literally be anything. And you could end up doing this. Like, you could start anywhere and end up doing this kind of stuff. Because sure, I started in high school learning how to do, computer stuff and testing out of everything. But, no problem. Like, but, like, you don't have to start with any kind of knowledge of front-end development and be able to do this stuff. Back when I was in high school, the game was totally different. Like, we didn't have this kind of stuff going on. We didn't have our JavaScript, stored in separate files, and our style pages stored in, the various formats. And we didn't have to worry about responsive web development because, like, when I was a truck driver, you know what phones were capable of? Text messaging. And maybe, if you're lucky, they take a picture. That's it. There's no web browsing. There's no apps. When I started trucking, like, we didn't have to worry about designing a website for mobile platforms. That wasn't even a thing. Nobody even considered that a thing. Oh god, I loved Snake. I loved Snake. Snake was a great game. Between that and my Game Boy Advance, that was all I did while I was trucking. Besides driving the truck, of course. But yeah. So, I was with this company for about, like I said, a month. And then I needed to take off for my sister's graduation. And this was a pretty big deal because my sister was the first Okusin to get a degree, like, in a non-secondary sort of, manner. Like, my mom had gotten her degree. Yeah, but she had to go back to school, because she had been raising kids for years and wasn't able to go to college. Wasn't until, like, 10 years later that she was actually able to pick up her education again. My sister, on the other hand, she was finally being the first to graduate with an actual degree. Like, she completed the correct way you're supposed to do education, kind of thing. And the first Okusin to do so. Oh god, no, I did not game while driving. Driving was the game while driving. Do people play Trucking Simulator now? Well, like, I did the real thing. I didn't need a simulator. That was legal back then, though. I'm pretty sure they would have had a problem. But, yeah, so I had fun while I was driving. I actually enjoyed the driving. I did not enjoy the company I was working with, but, like, they were pretty neh as far as the company goes. I had visited the terminal that I was going to be working out of during the orientation. And the day that I was there was a guy throwing a fit because the company's newest policy was that their trainers, the guys that the new drivers would have to run with for a while, were going to be required to wear a company shirt with their name and the company logo on it. And the dude was just throwing a fit over it. I'm not gonna wear his damn shirt. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I hope I don't end up with that guy. I ended up with that guy. That was the guy I ended up with as my trainer. Anyway, at the time I was a non-smoker, and they assured me that because I was a non-smoker, I would be paired with a trainer who didn't smoke. This guy was a chain-smoking walking chimney stack. Like, it's all he did was drive and smoke. So it was terrible. Also, the guy was ridiculously overly cocky, overly confident, and absolutely sure I didn't know squat about how to drive a truck. Despite the fact that before I even got to the point where I'm in a truck with him, I had spent 6 months driving in Minnesota snow. Icy roads. Just learning how to drive these damn things. And I was learning from a guy who had more experience than this trainer did. I may have taken it a little far in showing this guy up a couple of times, because I did. I absolutely did. One time, I woke up outside of, I can't even remember where it is, but it's like someplace in Kansas or Oklahoma or something. But what I woke up to, I'm damn near an ice road trucker, except we didn't have water underneath the ice. It was just ice and then more ice. But
Um, so one of our runs, I woke up in, uh, we were hauling doubles, which was a thing this trainer I was running with had never done before. He had never run doubles, but the guy who normally ran the load we were taking wasn't available to take it. It needed to get there. We stepped up. Good on us, sure. Except my trainer, like, he overshot his confidence on this one, you know? But I had learned how to properly deal with doubles and even triples during that 6-month course that I took. Because the teacher that I had was, insane and wanted to make sure we knew every damn thing he could possibly impart on us. So of course he taught us doubles and triples. And if you're not sure what that is, if you've ever been on the freeway and you see a truck hauling a trailer and immediately behind that is another trailer, that's a double. If you see 3 in a row, that's a triple. They're usually slightly shorter, but you can carry more stuff that way. Anyway, there's a specific way you have to hook these up. Because you can't just back your truck up to the first trailer and then back that whole configuration up to the next trailer and expect it to line up real well. So it's possible that there's some limitations now. I don't see the doubles and triples very often anymore. We used to see them with a lot of package delivery companies. Like FedEx and UPS used to do that a lot. I don't see it nearly as often anymore. But this particular load was intended for a shopping mall. Like, one of the trailers was Marshall's clothing store, and I can't remember what the other one was, but they were both meant for for a shopping mall in Texas or something. Anyway, I wake up from my scheduled 8-hour nap to finding us on the side of the road. And the driver, the trainer that I'm running with, is, for some reason, pulling forward, pulling backward, pulling forward, pulling backward, pulling forward, pulling backward, and I'm just trying to figure out what the heck this guy is trying to do. So, every once in a while, he'd hop out of the cab, go wander and look at the trailers for a bit, and get back in, muttering to himself the whole time, ticked off at the whole world. I crawl out of the sleeper, and I'm just assessing the situation for a bit, because, I don't want to ask any stupid questions. After all, he's the trainer. He knows how to drive a truck. He's been driving since he's 6th grade, whatever. Anyway, it becomes clear that the problem is he detached the trailers. They were hooked up for us before we left the terminal initially. So he didn't have to mess with that to begin with, which, honestly, I feel like he could have used the education, because now we were on the side of the road, and he's trying to reconnect them, because he made the mistake of disconnecting them all. So, our truck, the first trailer, and the second trailer, all separate, on the side of the interstate, in some random part of the country. And he can't get them to line up so that he can get get them to connect. And honestly, I'm laughing. I'm laughing. Because this was something that I had been specifically taught how to do. And here was a guy who absolutely had just given me the business, probably not even 24 hours sooner, about how I don't question his authority on how to drive. And as I'm watching this, he keeps knocking into one of the trailers. And it's getting closer and closer to the ditch. Because here in America, especially in parts of the country where it snows, we have really steep ditches on either side of the road. A ditch is not your friend. You don't want your trailers going in there because you're not getting them out. And with each failed attempt to get these trailers to couple up, he's knocking them in closer and closer and closer to going over the edge. So, after watching this for a while, I stop him, and I'm like, look, you've been at this for a while. I actually have some experience with doubles. Let me have a shot at this. If I screw it up, if I fail, that's on me. If I don't manage to succeed, you can take over again. Deal? Deal. First attempt. Boom. Whole works. Locks into place. Now, of course, there was a bit of having to maneuver some things into their proper place before I got the go, before I took a go at it. And the whole time I'm doing that, he's just kind of looking at me like, what the hell are you even doing? And I'm just like, just trust me. This is part of my process. Don't worry. I'm getting to it. But anyway, I take one shot at backing into the trailers, and they all click into place. Because he was a huge egotistical maniac. That's why he didn't ask earlier. Like I said, probably not even 24 hours earlier, he had been giving me the business on how I do not question his knowledge because he is the trainer. I am the trainee. I'm supposed to be learning from him, not the other way around. Like, that was actually a thing that happened. But anyway, so I managed to save this this load from going into a ditch. And I asked him, so why are we on the side of the road with everything unhooked anyway? Like, what happened? Did you run over something? Did you think you had a flat? What's the deal? The reason he had disassembled the entire works on the side of a busy interstate was because he felt like the last trailer was following funny. There's a phenomenon known as dog walking when you're doing doubles and triples. And that is, the first trailer will follow behind you normally. The second trailer will almost seem to be at kind of a bit of a weird angle sometimes. Not a severe angle, just a little bit of an angle. That's what he was noticing. This is completely normal with doubles and triples. It is not the kind of thing you stop, unhook everything, and reattach everything expecting it's going to go away, because it's not. It's not going to fix anything. There is no fix for this. It's just a thing it does. So, yeah, after he tells me that that's why, I'm like, oh yeah, no, they do that. It's just a thing. Like, you didn't have to do any of that. You can't fix it, it's not gonna fix. If the angle were super severe, then you'd want to take your trailers in and, like, have the alignment fixed. But, like, that tiny little bit of an angle, that's nothing. That's normal. So, yeah, that was fun. That was fun. Wasn't the thing that made me leave this company, though. The thing that made me leave this company was, when I took the time off for my sister's graduation. As I said, she was the first in a long family history to finally get her degree in the proper time you're supposed to get your degree. And, so I wanted to be there to help celebrate, recognize the monumental occasion that this was. And I was assured by the company this would be no problem. They would get me off the truck, and then after my time off ended, they would get me back on the truck, and it would be fine. It's like, all right, cool. So I'm staying at my sister's, which is in the Minneapolis area, at the time that it is time to get me back on the truck. I am running low of money, though, because, time off, I'm not making any money. I'm not getting paid time off. And I hadn't been running with the company for all that long. Like I said, only been working with them for a month. So, I had a little bit of money left. Figured, okay, this last little bit of money will probably be, gas money to get me back to the terminal, get me back on the truck. Should be fine. So I call up the dispatcher, and I'm like, all right, where's my truck at? Am I running with Grimes again? What's going on? Oh yeah, you'll be running with Grimes, but he's down in Texas. Okay, so do you want me to wait for him to get back? I mean, that's a few days, but I can just wait for him to get back to the terminal, drive up there. Oh no, we're gonna put you on a bus, send you down to Texas. Oh, okay. I suppose that's fine. So he's just gonna wait down in Texas for me to show up on a bus. Alright. I guess that's fine. I mean, I suppose he's not able to drive all the way across the country back. I don't know how he got all the way down there without a co-pilot, but, sure. I guess it makes some kind of sense. Alright, well, there'll be a bus ticket waiting for you at the Greyhound in Silver Lake. Okay, never heard of Silver Lake, but can't be that far away, right? So I look it up, and yeah, it's like a 2-hour drive from where I'm at. Keep in mind, I'm in the Minneapolis area at the time. So I get my sister to drive me to Silver Lake. Spend the last of my money buying gas to get there. And when I get there, the bus depot is just this little ramshackle nothing of a shed at a, they have like one bench. There's a bus that stops there twice a week. And that bus only goes to Minneapolis, where I drove from to get there. So I get in there and I'm like, okay, well, they told me there's a ticket waiting for me here that's supposed to get me down to Texas. And they're like, no ticket here. You can buy a ticket to Minneapolis, though. You know, the place you just drove from. So I called up my dispatch and I'm like, hey, what the hell, my guy? You sent me to a bus depot that was just gonna send me back to where I came from, and I still have to buy a ticket? What is going on? Oh, I'll have to get back to you on that. Don't bother. I'm not gonna mess with this anymore. It's been stupid this whole time. I'm gonna go do something else with my life. Have a nice day. 2 weeks later, I get a call from the trainer asking when I'm showing up. 2 weeks later. I'm like, dude, I quit. Are you still in Texas? Well, yeah, they haven't sent anybody down here. So that was my time trucking. Long story time, I know, but like I felt like there's some good tales in there to be told. Anyway, also, I'm feeling under the weather, so thinking about JavaScript and stuff is gonna be kind of fun. Anyway, after being a truck driver for a month and leaving that job because, like, that whole experience was stupid. I applied to be a truck driver at a couple of places around my hometown area, because there's a few trucking companies around here, but really wasn't getting a whole lot of interest because at the time I'm under the age of 23, and there's this weird thing where insurance companies don't want to insure new drivers under the age of 23, which is why I was able to get a job at that one company that was really terrible, because they operated as their own insurance company. And they hired everybody and anybody, and it didn't matter if you spoke English or not. They had an accident rating that was ridiculously high. They knew it. They didn't care. They just wanted people to work for them. So, you know, no other insurance company was gonna insure them. But that's how I got a job as a truck driver. And why I was not able to get a job trucking for any other company. So, I went to looking into other avenues of employment. I got a job as a professional photographer for Walmart Studios for a while, which was you'd go to the various Walmarts around the area, and it was a pretty wide area. They sent me all over the state. And Walmart portrait studios are interesting. They have a fixed, ginormous camera with like a film reel of like 1,000 frames. Like it's enormous. And it's got a very limited focus, but the studio is super tiny. And you have them sit basically on the marked X on the floor. That's where the camera's going to be in focus, and you really can't screw it up. You just point and you click, you know? The whole thing is just getting a good expression and, you know, making sure everybody is in frame. Very simple photography at its best. Got a lot of grief, though, for calling myself a photographer, and that's where I worked. But it's like, hey, I'm working with children, taking pictures and whatnot. It's still work. It's still photography. I do still have to know what I'm doing. You know? I mean, I know people who run around with a little simple point and shoot, you know, $20 job that they bought off the shelf at Walmart and call themselves photographers. I'm sure as heck calling myself a photographer, and I'm calling myself a professional photographer because I was getting paid for photography. Anyway, people were very dismissive of my skill as a photographer because that's how they saw me. They didn't know that outside of that environment, like, you put a 35 millimeter in my hand, I knew what to do with it. I had spent years previous running around not just my school but my hometown, taking pictures of everything and anything, and actually coming up with some really amazing prints. Doing all kinds of in-camera photography tricks and, you know, really interesting stuff. But, you know, once you work at a Walmart, you know, you tend to get snubbed by other professionals because they don't see that as real photography work. Which, if you're gonna be that kind of person, like, just quit your job. Quit your profession entirely. Walk away. You don't deserve to be calling yourself a professional if you're going to treat other people that way. Because that's not professional. That's terrible. That's absolutely terrible. But I did that job for a while, but it got to be expensive because I was a traveling photographer. They would send me to a bunch of different studios all over the state, and the gas often was paid for out of pocket. I was supposed to get reimbursed for gas, but apparently the amount that they reimbursed wasn't adequate for the amount of gas I was actually using, and the cost of gas, and yeah. Basically, in order for it to have been worth it, I would have had to have owned the most fuel-efficient vehicle on the market. And even then, not driven, but walked the entire way. It wasn't worth it, and there was no math that ever made it worth it. By that point, though, I had met my kid's mother. She got me a job working at the same grocery store she worked at. So I was able to quit that job, doing the photography thing, which, you know, a little disappointing. I would have liked to have stayed with it. But, we did spend some time building a dark room and stuff when we were together. I didn't get a whole lot of use out of it, though, because I was working all the time. But, now, having moved back to my hometown and having nothing to do and, you know, a fairly decent cash flow to work with, I've decided to build my own little portrait studio in my little basement apartment. And, so yeah. We've come back around to why I now have a sinus infection and am dealing with weird throaty issues today, and yeah. Yesterday and the day before, been sweeping out this this corner of the apartment, trying to clear space, and I finally have my studio lights up. I've got my backdrop hanger. I'm still waiting for the dust to settle a little bit more, though, before I bust out the camera, because, like, I want to get the dust out of here. There's dust everywhere still. Mostly because, like, I kicked up a lot of dust doing the cleaning, and now that dust has settled, so now I gotta clean again to get rid of more dust. But it's been murder on the sinuses, murder on the lungs, because I'm highly allergic to dust, and anytime it's, you know, kicked up into the air and, you end up breathing it in and it causes all kinds of weird issues. But that's why I was late today to get started. But yeah, like my little portrait studio area, it's not super huge, okay? But it's not like just a little photography tent kind of thing. It's, it's going to be a miniature studio as best as I can pull that off in the limited space I have. Like, it's not super huge. I'm also not intending on shooting any live subjects. I have a couple of Voltron action figures, the full-size, robot cats that turn into big giant robot thing. And a bunch of like action figures and Gundam models and stuff that I'm going to be messing around with. Because while I'm living here, my intent is not to be very social with the local community. I grew up with this local community, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of these people. There was a reason I moved out of here 10 years ago, and had no intention of coming back, ever. Yeah, pretty much just taking pictures of zombies. Maybe taking pictures of my mom's cats, if they'll sit long enough for me to do so. One of them might. The other one's going to be terrified of anything. So, like, if he's sitting for a picture, it's basically he's sitting for a picture looking just completely terrified of what's going on. Might be an interesting picture, but, but the intent is I'm not going to be living here where I'm at forever. I do plan on moving again. But it's probably going to be a couple of years from now after my kid finally graduates high school. He's 16. He's only got a couple years left. And life's been kind of rough on him, so I want to make sure that he has at least this one thing. He's enjoying school, so I'm going to let him finish school where he's enjoying it. I may not be entirely happy where I am, but he's happy. And that's what's important to me right now. And I can use this time where I am in a self-imposed isolation because the surrounding community I absolutely despise. And I can focus on things like my magic act, my photography, my coding skills, playing video games, rebuilding my video game collection, building a savings, basically just, dealing with life, getting things on track and where they should be and where I feel like I want them to be and where I'd be more comfortable with them, and preparing for my kid to be 18 years old and us to be out where we want to be, And, if I'm entertaining the Swedes in the meantime, by all means, I consider that an honor. I mean, how many people can consider themselves internationally known entertainers? Not many. Putting that on the resume. But, yeah, so, wanting to get back into photography, finally got myself a decent camera. I went with a Canon EOS Rebel T7. Yeah. This is probably the fanciest camera I have owned in a very long time, which might not seem all that impressive to, real diehard shutterbugs, but like, I've been away from being able to take any serious interest in photography for about a decade, okay? Film was still king when I was, seriously into photography last. So, this is a big step for me, getting into digital. one of the things I'll be doing with that is displaying my artwork on websites. If you're a photographer, getting into photography and wanting a easy way to display your stuff, learn web development. Why? Because you can showcase your portfolio right on the internet. If you learn how to do this kind of stuff, you can have your own web page that you're in control of, showcasing your pictures, highlighting your skills, and learning web development is actually easy. It's really not that difficult. A lot of people want to say it's super hard, but that's like, if you're intending to go like full developer working for Google type of, level, yeah, sure. Set the bar high, it's going to be hard. But set the bar at something more reasonable, like you just want to be in charge of your own website. It's a lot more manageable. And so yeah, I mean, the past 10 years I haven't been completely away from coding, because that's what I would do between shifts while I was doing call center work. And then this opportunity came up where I was able to just be paid to be my son's caretaker, instead of having to constantly hire someone else out for it. And now I can focus on whatever I want while he's in school. And yeah, I've been imparting my coding skills on the general masses via the Free Code Camp Earth Facebook group for a few years during that past decade, tutoring various people outside of that as well. So this is a thing I've been doing for ages and ages and ages. But anyway, now I'm bringing it to you people via Twitch, and it feels like a pretty decent fit. But that's how we got here. It was a long, weird road, but now we're here. Now I'm dealing with a sinus infection from kicking up a bunch of dust because my other hobbies require me to clean up after myself and make some room. And that's why today's been a bit weird. Because, yeah, I'm working through a bit of a sinus infection and on and off having asthmatic issues because, yeah, dust allergies. They're no joke. I really should have looked into a respirator. Or, a better mask before I started all of this. And I should have thought that through. I didn't. That's on me. So, now that story time's out of the way, and we've spent a good hour and a half just on that, I don't regret anything. I regret nothing. Let's talk about how we bring back our navigation bar, because I showed you how to hide that. So now, when we go into mobile view, there's no navigation bar. I also showed you how to take our aside and our main sections, and while they're side by side on the other layouts, they stack when we go into mobile. So that's a decent change, but we still need our navigation bar so that we can get around our page. Well, we want a hamburger icon. Let me take a look at this one here. This one's got a transparency that I like. Well, story time goes by quickly. It really does.
Let's see.
Is this something we can just use? Or are they going to require...
Okay. We can use this one. We can get away with that.
This one is considered public domain. So we are going to take this one and we're going to go... where is my folder? And put that in our images. I'm gonna shorten this name up. There we go. All right. Now, we want to take that image and we want to put it someplace where it is going to just be up in the corner. However, we only want it to display on this mobile view. Oh, excuse me. Another sneezing fit.
Okay. So, to do that, yeah, I definitely need an air purifier in here.
To do that, we are going to put our image right here in the container. Actually, no, we're not going to put that in the container, are we? Container is only as wide as this. We want it outside the container because we want it right up in that corner.
So, we are going to put this
Even before that. All right. See how that looks. Not bad, but that's not the placement we're going to want for it. So, we are going to give that an ID. Call that menu. I'm not using menu anywhere else, am I? I don't think I'm using menu anywhere else. Nope, I'm using nav bar everywhere else. So we're good. We can use menu.
All right. Now, first thing we want to do is we want to make that disappear within our media queries. So,
We go down to the first one, which is the tablet size display. Display, none. And that should make it disappear. Then we go down to the next one, and same thing. All right. Now the only view where this shows up should be our mobile view. All right. Now if we slide this over, it'll disappear. What's going on? Suppose it helps if I save the index, huh? It still doesn't disappear. Why? Because it worked here. How we got the nav bar to disappear entirely. Oh, what happened? Nope, still there. All right, let's see. How big is that picture anyway? Details. 64. Okay. Where am I at? Width? Okay. Why is nothing affecting that? Because that should be floated to the right. Because nothing has changed. There we go.
Now it works. And it's gone. It's there. It's gone. It's there. It's gone. So, here's where we're at. Desktop view. Nav bar in the proper spot. Section off to the side. Main
takes up the majority of our container, which resizes depending upon how big our layout is. Alright, we have our little menu icon showing up in mobile view. Our aside stacks with the main section. Now, we get to the fun part. Because what this is supposed to do is you're supposed to be able to click on it, and it's supposed to pop out that navigation bar. But so far, it does not do that. Because we now get to the JavaScript part of things. Because like I said, this is right here. This right here. This is where the magic happens. This is where we bring in the JavaScript. Now, if you've never played with JavaScript before, this may become a little intimidating. Don't worry. I've been down this road before. You're gonna be fine. Alright? Up here in the tabs, you see I have these two files here. Script.js and main.js. This is an optional form of organizing your JavaScript that I prefer. Okay? You don't have to do it this way. You can just put everything in JavaScript.js and load in one script page, or you can throw everything between a couple of script tags. No auto-completion today? Fine, no auto-completion. Like, you can just throw things between a couple of script tags if you so choose. But again, there are benefits to the way we do this sort of setup. If you put your JavaScript in an external script file, such as this or this, whether you're breaking it up into multiple or not, entirely up to you. But what you can do is you can reuse those scripts on other pages. And since our whole layout is going to look the same across multiple pages on a website, it would make sense to not have to copy the code of our JavaScript onto every single page and just put it in one file where if we need to make changes to it, it applies across the whole site instead of having to go to every single page and rewrite it every single time. This is what's called don't repeat yourself in code. You've probably heard keep it simple stupid, the KISS principle. KISS, keep it simple stupid. We do abide by that in programming, but we also abide by don't repeat yourself, DRY, the dry principle. If you have something that is going to apply to multiple pages, don't put it on every single page. Put it on an external file. And then just link the file. And the way we do that... Now, our script still needs an open and close tag. So you'll still have two tags here. One for open, one for close. But in your open, you are going to go with this attribute, which is just the location of this file right here. I also include a type Not entirely necessary, but you might want to include it, and you may want to spell JavaScript correctly. There we go. The reason for that is there are other types of coding languages that you could use here. They're not entirely common, and like one of them is TypeScript, I think it's called. I've only worked with it the one time, and it was in a Microsoft sort of front-end web development course that specifically taught that language. It was the only time I used it, and basically it's a knockoff of JavaScript, specifically used on Microsoft pages. I've never seen it anywhere else. Now, that's not to say it's not used anywhere else, but that's the only place I've seen it. We're not going to worry about it. And it's almost identical to JavaScript anyway. Like, you may as well use JavaScript. JavaScript is known by every browser. Even the Microsoft browsers use JavaScript. They all use it. The only browsers that don't use JavaScript are browsers that people have gone into the settings and turned the JavaScript off. Okay? You may run into that. It's less common nowadays, though, but a lot of people do it just out of paranoia because they think, oh, JavaScript, some sneaky developer is going to run something on my computer without my knowledge. Most of the time, what that sneaky developer is running on your computer without your knowledge is just the stuff that makes the page look good. That's it. Like, you know, nobody's really trying to do anything super terrifying with JavaScript. JavaScript is very mellow and mundane. Other languages you may encounter can do far worse and are far more nefarious. JavaScript, mostly it's just there to make the interaction with your web browser look better. So, calm down. You can enable JavaScript. You'll be fine. I mean, that's not to say there aren't some sneaky developers out there that do try to get away with some sneaky stuff. But it's less an issue than a lot of people like to think it is. And believe me, I'm properly paranoid. Well, thank you. I am properly paranoid when it comes to code, because like, I have enough experience to know what can be done because I do some of it. You know, I had a Facebook group that was dedicated to studying and learning and teaching people how to hack. I know what you can do with code. I know what the possibilities are. As a properly paranoid person, I'm saying go ahead and enable JavaScript on your browser. It's fine. Just, you know, stay away from shady websites. You'll be fine. Okay, so we have linked our script page. And we did so up in the header of our document. Now, where you link your script pages to your HTML document used to be a pretty big deal. Alright, this used to be the kind of thing people would start rage wars on forums about, because you've got to put it in the header of your document, or your functions aren't going to load properly, or you got to put it in the bottom part of your body of your HTML document, or things will start to run before all the elements load, and blah, 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 blah. Like, there literally were ridiculous debates. the way I handle it now, and it's probably not necessary, but it is a holdover from those old days, is I have one that is a script.js. I use this to declare my functions, set my constant variables. Basically, this is all the prep work. You know, if this were a cooking show, you know that part of the show where they have all the ingredients in the nice little bowls and everything's already pre-measured for them, and they're just dumping stuff into the pot later. Like, this is the part where everything's already measured out. Everything's already set aside and ready to go right at the top of the show. That's this one. You're gonna declare your functions in here. You're going to declare your variables in here. And then this one, main.js, this is a function by itself. Specifically, this is an unnamed function that just kicks off wherever this page loads. Okay, this one, I'm going to link down here at the bottom of the body, because that'll ensure it is the last thing that gets loaded. There won't be anything left of the document to have to load before before this kicks off. It's just, you know, all of the other elements are in place. It's 100% safe to start this thing up. If you remember... Oh, you want me to give you some examples of some cool, shady websites so you know what to avoid? Yeah, I'm not going to do that, because I don't know any. I'm not going to incriminate myself by admitting to knowing those shady websites. Not on a public forum like Twitch, that's for sure. But anyway, so I have this one down here, which is the main.js, which is just this function, which I'm calling the main function, because it's an unnamed function in my main JavaScript file. And then I have this header script file that's going to have all of my predefined functions. Like I said, if you remember when we were doing... It's going to load? There we go. When we were doing Python... OneDrive... Documents... Python code... Here we go. Ready, buddy. As you recall, the way our code was kind of split up here was we started with our declarations, our functions, our classes, all of that stuff at the top of the page, and then at some point we get to here, where we have this weird little if, where it's if the main is, or if the name of the module we're in is main, kick off this code. And this was so we could run it as a command line program. That's kind of what we're doing here in JavaScript. This main stuff would go here, between these two lines. All of the other stuff, our class declaration and our function definitions, would go here. So, that's what we're doing here. We've basically just taken that and broken it up into two very useful files. Reason why I do that is because that just seems to be what makes the most sense. From a programming perspective, because up here in the header of my document, I may have other libraries that I'm linking, not just this script.js. If I'm running jQuery, which is a helper library that's publicly available on the internet, you could put that in here as well. And the order matters. So, you know, if I had a helper library of like jQuery or something linked before my script, anything in my script.js file that happened to be named the same as anything in that helper library would immediately overwrite whatever's in that helper library. Sometimes that's the behavior you want. Sometimes you feel like, okay, well, their method for doing that particular thing isn't the way that I want it handled. I want it to work this other way. So you would link the helper library because there's other functions in there that you want, but then you would link yours next that overwrites the parts that you didn't like. Sometimes the libraries you link to are just previously, written libraries you wrote yourself, But this one I usually link to, this is the one that's specific for this website. All right, if it's script.js, it's usually definitions I have written for the site that I'm working on. Main.js is the action of those definitions, those functions, and whatnot for the site that I'm working on. All right, this is not where I'm importing some other library that was just written as a general use case kind of thing. This is specific to this site. And specific to this site, we want to be able to click on our hamburger icon, and we want a certain element to show up. But we haven't created that element yet. So first, we're going to do that. All right, so in the same area where we've got our image for the hamburger icon, we're going to create a new div. Now, we can't call this menu because we've already used menu, although we could change this to menu icon. We want to make sure we've changed that everywhere. We could have put the whole thing in menu and just image and div separate, but we're trying to keep things mostly simple here. For the most part. Alright. This shouldn't upset the flow of anything just yet, because we haven't added anything to our div. Yep, nothing. Nothing's changed. What we're going to do, though, is we're going to take this bit here. We're just going to copy that straight in. fix our alignments here. There we go. Because remember, the only thing we're doing is we're bringing back the navigation bar as sort of a little pop-out thing that appears when we click on this hamburger icon. All right, so we have our menu. Now we need to hide it. All right. Using fixed, we take it out of the normal flow of the document. So, like, all of the other elements aren't going to reserve space for it or anything. We're also going to float it to the right, just like our hamburger icon. Alright, now this should make that disappear. Perfect. When we resize, it should stay gone. Perfect. Okay. Now, we do still need one more thing. Where did we get that one from? Wiki Commons? Yeah, we'll steal this one. It is public domain, right? Creative Commons. Oh, that's gonna mean we gotta throw in a bit of icons and stuff. Let me see if I can find one that's just free to use. This one's free to use. Now, you might be wondering, why does it matter that I'm looking for ones that are specifically public domain? They're the easiest to work with without getting into some kind of trouble. Alright? You don't want to have some idiot filing some kind of lawsuit against you because they think somehow, because you have a website that uses a bit of clip art they designed, that entitles them to a portion of your profits or whatever, real or imagined. And believe me, they're all going to think that you're making hand over fist, and they're going to try to argue that the reason you're able to make hand over fist is because of their stupid little icon that you borrowed. Alright, don't fall into that trap. There's a lot of shady people out there who want to be able to file a lawsuit for the dumbest reasons. Don't give them a reason. Alright, and we're going to just put that right here. So yeah, I always go with public domain if it's not something I've designed myself. Admittedly, with something like this, I would probably just go ahead and pop open Paint and make my own, but I'm bored. I feel like we should probably cover the whole proper use of clip art and stuff during this, because it's a common bit of information to have if you're going into front-end web development, because a lot of the time the images and stuff you're going to want to use on your page, you're going to have to be aware of whether or not you need to attribute where you got them from, whether it's fair use to put them on your site, and it's going to be for things like this, where it's a little icon or something that you thought looks cool somewhere, and you thought, oh, it's just clip art, right? I can just throw that on my page. It should be fine. Except that you want to make sure that that you're safe and clear to do that. Not every clip art is free use. Some of it's absolutely not. We just want position. We're going to go with relative, because we're just going to move it slightly from its normal spot, if anything. But mainly we want to be able to float it to the left. Or do we want to float that to the right? Maybe we'll float that to the right. And width. Let's see, what was the width on that thing? It's not very big. There we go. Details. 21 pixels? Yeah, that's not very big. Hopefully it's big enough we can still click on it. Alright. Should not show up, though. Not yet, anyway. Alright. Now comes the fun part. Okay, so, what we want to do is we want to create a style class. We're going to call it hidden. None. And there we go. That'll work. That'll work for now. Yeah. Okay. Now, the part that's going to do that, the part that's going to make use of that, is going to be this menu, right? We're going to apply that here. And then up here, where is my menu? There's my menu. We're going to take this out. It should still not show up, right? That's right. It still doesn't show up. But that hidden property is a class all by itself. We did explain classes in id and ID last time when we were doing the layouts. All right, classes, if you recall, those are CSS rules that you can apply to multiple things, whereas ID should only apply to one thing on the page. Like, here we have an ID of menu. We should only have one menu on our page. Now, if we wanted an entire class of menus, we could do that, but that would be kind of silly, right? What we could do, though, is a class of list items, because we have multiple of those, and then that would style all of our list items. And the difference between those selectors, we use class attribute and ID attribute, but then in our style page, we use the pound symbol, the hashtag, for ID, and we use the full stop or the period for class. And the way that I remember it, and it might only make sense to English Americans, I don't know how well this idea for remembering this translates to other parts of the world, but the way that I remember how to do that, ID number, we use the number sign for ID, ID number, class period. That's how you remember which one to be using in your rule declarations. All right, so we've made a class of hidden. We've applied that to our menu. Our menu will stay hidden. Now, we would like to make a function. What this function is going to do is it is going to change whether or not an item is hidden or not. So, like, if the item's already hidden, it'll show it. If the item is not hidden, it'll hide it. By applying our hidden class appropriately. Now, how do we do that? You might be asking yourself. Good question. All right, so y'all remember the W3 reference page? Make that a little bigger so y'all can see it. Great place to get information from, but also a great place to find how to do some of this weird stuff. So, in our function, we're going to start with this right here. We want to declare a variable and assign it the element from our HTML document so that it knows which element we're targeting with our code. Okay? Some of this might seem a little intimidating, but just bear with me here. What we're dealing with is what is referred to as the document object model. I'm hoping you can read that. I'm also hoping I spelt embarrassed right. Is it 2 R's? Nah, I'm not going to change it. Okay. Object-oriented programming is one of those weird concepts that's really annoying to wrap your head around because nobody really explains it properly. And when they do, they immediately obfuscate their own explanation by doing something stupid and complicated and annoyingly ridiculous with it. The idea of object-oriented programming is that everything is an object in your code. Like with our Cruddy Buddy app. You remember the Cruddy Buddy app that we made, right? Remember this guy? Let's bring that guy up. He's pretty handy even for this. Where is my documents? Python code. Cruddy Buddy. We declared a class that defined our Cruddy Buddy object. And it was literally just a collection of functions and it had these these couple of properties that it held on to. Why? Because they're all related in some way. You know, when we're working with a file, we want to write to the file, we want to read the file, update the file. But these are all actions that we do to this specific file, so it made sense to group them together. The file name and directory that it's stored in, and all the different functions that we can apply to this object. JavaScript, whether you want it to be or not, is an object-oriented programming language. Everything is an object in JavaScript. And that's a good thing, even though it can be kind of confusing sometimes. The object that you're going to work with most often is your HTML document, which is, you know, this whole thing that we've been working on here. We've actually been building our document object. Alright, and to give you an idea of what I'm talking about here, down at the bottom, I'm just going to do this. Don't worry if you don't know what this means. All it's going to do is it's going to take the document object, which is a universally already generated object when our page is loaded into the web browser. It exists, it's been defined, you don't have to create your own, you've already created it by writing the file. Okay? Console.log is kind of the print statement of JavaScript for developers. Alright, it's not going to print anything to the screen, though. You kind of have to go into this part here with the dev tools. And here you go. Uncaught reference args is not defined in main.js. What? Args is totally defined right here. Args. It's right there. What are you talking about? It's not defined. It doesn't have anything in it. It's an empty thing. But it's totally there. Don't give me that whole it's not defined nonsense. Yeah, okay, whatever. Okay, but anyway, immediately below that line, might be a little hard to see, but it outputs our document object into the console here. And if I expand on that, bring this up a little bit better, so that you can see what's going on here. As you can see here, it's got a bit of our HTML. It's got our head. And as you notice, this is exactly the code we've been writing. Alright, and this is what's outputted by our console.log statement. Alright, this line here took the JavaScript document object and just printed it to the console. So now we can sit here and we can explore our object. And if we expand all this, we'll see it is exactly just the code that we have written in our editor. Nothing fancier, nothing unusual.
It is one-to-one exactly what we wrote. Now, as you can see, we can highlight the various parts. This right here is our hidden menu. You notice nothing shows up there, but then when we get down here into the parts that are visible, you can highlight them on the output in the console, and it'll even highlight them in the actual document layout to show you that's the one you're talking about, that's one you're referring to. You can expand this and you can see that's the exact text of that paragraph. Alright, this is the object code for this website. Literally exactly what we've been writing. No difference. So, we have in JavaScript, there's my mouse. In our JavaScript, we have access to our entire document. Now, one thing that you don't see here is all of the helper functions, because the console's not going to show us all of the default, like every object has these functions available to them. One of the best, and one that I use all the time, get element by ID. Alright. Now, you've seen these ID tags that we've been throwing in, these ID attributes everywhere. We've been using them quite a lot. Well, if we want to return just that part of our document, the way we do that is get element by ID. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is we're going to want to target our burger menu icon. And we've given that the ID of menu icon. And we're literally just going to copy that right there. And this is why it's important that if you're using ID tags, you only have one. You have one ID of this name. Because if we had two, it would confuse our code. Alright? Because it would try to return two different elements, and we're just looking for one. Now, there is a similar method, and as you note, this is just our document, and this is a function or a method of our object. Just like when we were doing Python, our object had various functions within it that we referred to as methods. Literally just an interchangeable name. Function and method, same thing. It's just when it's a method, it's part of an object. When it's a function, it's off by itself. It's its own thing. Get element by ID is a method of the document object. We're giving it this argument, which is that ID of that element. And now let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. It just returned the picture, the image of the hamburger icon. Okay. So, you know what? Let me get rid of this bit here.
for now. So it stops thinking that we're trying to reference that. Why is it still doing it? I got rid of it. Did I not save it? I saved it. Go away. It's really not there anymore, though. Is it doing that thing? I bet it's doing that thing again. Yep, there we go. Why is our script.js, though, not highlighted? I don't understand that part. Have I misspelt the script tag? It's SRC, isn't it? Yep. I screwed it up. This was never going to work. Ever. Because apparently... I can't source properly. Okay, so we've caught that now. I could probably put args back in there and it'd work now because, yeah, I wasn't properly sourcing the file. I should have noticed that it wasn't underscoring the file name there, but I didn't because I'm an idiot. It's fine. As for what this args is intended for, it's another one of those little debugging purposes. That is not what I copied. It's another one of those debugging tricks. Like here, if I decided to make this first value of the args document, you know, like a flag for if we're logging something. I could do something like this. And then come down here. And I could throw in like if args 0. Because that's going to be my flag there. Equals, what do I go with, true? Oh, right. In JavaScript, you got to put your conditionals in parentheses. Almost like they're the arguments of a function. You'll get used to it. But this is how you do an if statement. So here we've declared args. We've got the first value is true. We're going to use that as our logging value, our logging flag. So basically, we could turn off the ability to send this Now, as you may notice, our icon suddenly has a whole lot of values here that we can deal with. This is probably a lot more information than what we need. Owner document is just the regular document. We have a style property here that's got all kinds of stuff. It's literally got the setting of every property, whether we're using it or not. Let me see here. Probably not going to be an inner HTML, is there? Oh, nope, there is. There is an inner HTML. Even though this is an image, you're not going to have an inner HTML. I'll show you what that is later for those of you that are curious. What time are we at, by the way? Oh, we're almost at 1 o'clock. Okay, so what we want to do is for our mobile view here, when we click on this, we want to make it disappear. But also I wanted to finish demonstrating this. So now, I've just turned our logging flag off. If I hit that, you notice there's no output. There's nothing in the console now, because I turned that statement off. It's now false, so this is false. This doesn't happen. So, yay! That's how you do if statements. I mean, suddenly JavaScript seems like wizardry, doesn't it? Don't worry, it gets even better. Alright, here we go. What we want to do... Where did I have that being declared here? Toggle hide, okay. We're gonna go with, we're gonna throw an ID here. I'm not sure if I can use ID though. Can I use ID? I think I can use ID. And we're going to declare an element, document dot get element by, helps if I use the proper capitalization by ID, and we're going to use that ID argument. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to call this function, but we got to pass the argument of the proper ID. Okay? Now, looking back at this thing, the way we do it, element, class list, remove, whatever the style is. However, for particularly this one, we want to add. Okay, so element, class list, add, and the one that we want to add is hidden. All right, now there's a couple ways we can do this. What does let do? Let is a keyword in JavaScript that is for defining your variables. The first time you're going to use a variable name, you'll probably use the let statement. It's optional to throw let in front of there. Like, this code would absolutely work if I didn't have let in front of it. But in some programming languages, you need to declare your variables. So basically what I'm doing here is before you use the variable, declare the variable. And then we do stuff with the variable. It's kind of an initialization of the variable. And var is exactly the same as let. It's just let is the new var. I don't know why they changed it. And yes, var is for variable. It's to declare a new variable. I don't know why they're changing it to let all of a sudden. But that's just become the way they're doing it. Yeah, it initiates your variable. In some programming languages, like Java, you actually have to declare what type of variable it is. Like, it's a string, or it's an integer. With JavaScript, it basically just, it creates a general purpose variable. You could basically store anything in that. It's not going to care what type it is, because as far as it's concerned, all variables are of the same type. They're of the type variable. It'll depend on how it gets used that it really matters. Python didn't bother us with this, because Python decided to just be smart about it and be like, yeah, we'll just figure it out when we run the code, if that's a number or a string, by whatever you're using it for, whatever you store in that space. If you store a number there, it's a number. If you store a string there, it's a string. JavaScript kind of does the same thing, but you still have to define your variable. Or at least it's considered proper etiquette to. It would probably still work even if we didn't. But you can combine these two statements by declaring your variable and using it in the same line, which is what I'm doing here. Let element just initiates my variable element, and then we're immediately going to retrieve from the document object the element with whatever this ID is, and it gets stored there, and then we're going to add the hidden class. That's all that function's gonna do. Not really a whole lot of fanciness. Yeah, so not super complicated. That is a fun fact. Alright, so how do we make it so that this function is triggered when we click on this? One way we can do it is we can just go right into our HTML, and we can do onClick, There we go. I think. All right, this is one way to do it. This is just immediately putting in the JavaScript listener right into our HTML. Not my preferred method though, because this kind of obfuscates things a little bit. Because let me show you. This works. Well, it's supposed to. Did I put it in the wrong spot? Menu icon. Menu icon. Why is it not working? Menu icon. Hidden. Well, why isn't it working now? Is it because of this nonsense here? Is that what's going on? Reload that. Reload that. Style, give that a reload just in case. I don't know. Reload this. That should disappear. But it doesn't. Maybe because I'm not making it a clickable object in the HTML? That shouldn't be necessary, should it? Let's find out. Am I using the wrong name? Toggle underscore hide. Toggle underscore hide. No, that's the right one. Huh. Menu icon, menu icon. No, we don't want to use that. We need it to be the single quotes because we're inside of an attribute. This will at least tell us if we're registering anything. Is it because I didn't do that? No, not that. Okay, so it is doing that. The function is running, but there is something wrong. With our element here. Why is it not adding? It is kind of time for my lunch, but also my code's not working. And I want it to work.
We'll try toggle. Now, they're just doing it this way. They're not even bothering to assign it. Maybe we'll have better luck if we do that. Alright.
It's still not going away.
Why isn't it going away? That's very strange. Okay, well, let's see if maybe it's just... I don't like that we're trying to pass that.
We'll just go straight into targeting it directly. Now I'm just annoyed. Let's try something else here. This function doesn't seem to be doing what it's supposed to be doing. I mean, I am literally just gonna copy the very code they have there, paste, menu icon, because that's what we want to disappear, paste, the class that we want to add, this one right here, copy, paste, save that, Copy this name. Paste. And get rid of this. I don't think that's got any effect on it. Huh. It's not disappearing. Why is it not disappearing? Now I'm just annoyed. Let's try... Let's try targeting the menu and see if we get a different result. Instead of menu icon. Okay, you're all seeing this, right? Like, it's working for that, but it's not working for our image. It wasn't anyway. What? I don't understand that part. Literally the exact same thing. Nope. So there's got to be something that's overriding this to keep it from applying the class there. All right. So anyway, in our close icon, we would want to do the same thing. I know what I'm gonna do. I have an idea. I'm going to encapsulate this in a container object. One that I know I can make disappear. And make that the menu icon that disappears. May screw up the layout of my page, though. What? It still isn't going away. I don't get it. Okay, so for whatever reason, it just doesn't want... The page refuses to hide this thing. I'm gonna have to figure out why that is. Why is my on-click not working for that, though? Oh, that's because I went on close. That's on click. So, hit reload. It appears, goes away. It appears, it goes away. It appears, it goes away. This also does nothing. Does that still disappear when I resize the page, though? Yes. Yes, it does. But, like... it still isn't quite doing it right. I mean, I suppose we could just hide the icon with the menu. We'll try that. Close, but still not quite right. Because now it's underneath the... it's underneath that. So... Alright, targeting the icon does nothing for whatever reason. Still haven't figured that out. The idea, though, is sometimes it won't work the way that you expect it to. Yeah, see, that's what I'm thinking. It has to be overridden somewhere in the CSS. But here's the thing. Our script happens after the CSS. So our script should be able to override all the CSS. But for whatever reason, that's not happening. So what I need to do next is I'm going to move these if it'll calmly highlight the things. There we go. Let's put these after the nav bar. Actually, no, I want to put them outside of the nav bar, don't I? I put it way at the bottom, didn't it? Nope. I have broken it. It is now broken. We should get away with being able to put it immediately after the nav bar. Like, that should be acceptable. Might not be exactly what we wanted. But this should work. I think. Yeah, kinda. Although... for some reason, it's extending way beyond our... way beyond our container. Why is it extending beyond our container? I mean, that's acceptable, but it's still not exactly what we wanted. But it's acceptable. So, we now have a vanishing hamburger menu. We have a vanishing nav bar. We have our aside and our main content boxes stacking. And when we click on the hamburger icon, even though the hamburger icon doesn't go away like it's supposed to, it does pop up our navigation bar. And we can either click the hamburger icon or the close. Although right now the close button is kind of just ruining our flow. And since we can't get rid of the hamburger icon anyway, let's get rid of the close icon. It's not what we set out to do, but it works. Kinda. You know? I am gonna have to do some research to find out why the stupid hamburger icon wasn't disappearing. There might be some ridiculous thing like, images can't be unloaded once they're loaded in or something. I don't know. I might just have to make it resized down to 0 instead of trying to hide it. I mean, that's a thing you can do. Make its width 0 pixels instead of, you know, making its display property none. That might be a thing. I don't know. I'll have to see. But for now, all of our stuff works. And this is our intro to JavaScript. JavaScript can be kind of frustrating because there are these weird little things that will not behave exactly the way you anticipate them to, but will instead do very strange things you don't expect. Make it turn 90 degrees instead. Yeah, I'm not gonna get super fancy. but I probably could. I probably could.
I do believe there is a CSS property that allows us to do that, and I should be able to apply that to an image. But again, I'm still not sure why this wasn't being applied to the image. I'm gonna have to look that up. It's probably a thing I'm forgetting, that I'm not able to do it because, you know, stupid things, stupid reasons, who knows? In a way, this actually kind of works better than I anticipated that it would. It's just not exactly what I intended, you know? Like having the navigation menu drop the, drop the header down. Like, it works. It may not be what I set out to do, but it's acceptable. And it works. So, I don't know. I'm probably just going to have to settle on that, and that's how coding works, by the way. Sometimes you just have to settle for what works, okay? You might not get exactly the result you were looking for. And yeah, with JavaScript, reasons is exactly why things are gonna work weird sometimes. There's a lot of weird little nuances with JavaScript that you only really get used to through experience and through, repetition, and just you experience it again and again and again and again. But this works. This, for all of its flaws and purposes, works exactly the way we're intending it to, or the way that, we would want it to. May not be what we had in mind when we started, but this is a working layout. Now, what we would do with this is we would just fill in the actual information, and we would have a fully formed working web page. Now, I know this may not seem terribly exciting and doesn't seem like we've done a whole lot of anything useful with JavaScript, and it's a very good reason why it feels like that. I mean, for one, we didn't even do anything with this. I mean, this is nothing. We've done nothing there. Everything takes place just here. We've declared one function, it's got one line, it targets our menu, and it adds or removes the class of hidden when we click on the hamburger icon. I mean, that's not a whole lot of fancy. It's barely anything. This barely scratches the surface of what we're going to be able to do with JavaScript. But this is a fairly decent introduction into how to do JavaScript. We have our function. We have our interface. Our user interface is our HTML document, and we have our event declared with the function that we declared here to be called when we click on it. That's how it works. I can probably even remove this because we're not using that for anything anymore, are we? Now watch our hamburger icon become super huge or something stupid like that. Yeah, hey, there we go. That's not ideal, but, I suppose that works. Although I'm going to take this, I'm going to put this back where I found it.
I had that, outside the container. And styles, block fixed. Yeah, okay.
I should put it back where it's supposed to be.
Why isn't it floating to the right? Okay, well, now that I've broken it, join me next week. We're going to explore more JavaScript. We're going to figure out how to do something far more interesting with JavaScript. I'm hoping to cover a bit about the canvas element that we haven't talked about yet, but the reason we haven't talked about it yet is because until we're doing stuff with JavaScript, there really isn't a need to do anything with it. But now that we've got a little bit of JavaScript under our belt, we're going to dive into that. I've said previously, I like to use JavaScript to make games for web browsers. This is where we're going to get to that, because the canvas element is an excellent interface for making games. It's a lot of fun. So, join me next week. Hopefully I'm feeling better. Hopefully this whole nasal thing doesn't progress worse. But yeah, we'll be into that. Tomorrow, we're going to play some more Metal Gear Solid, The Twin Snakes. Where we left off, we were about to face off with the ninja. So we're gonna deal with him next time. Friday, we're back to Breath of the Wild, where we are going to hopefully find the last few items for our Hyrule Compendium. I believe we're just down to like 8 weapons, 7 or 8 weapons we have to find. Hopefully, we're able to find those. Might be a little tricky, but I think we can do it. And let's see. Next week, we'll be playing Metroid again. We're getting back to that. We're going to finish Super Metroid. I'm not saying we're going to finish Super Metroid next week, but we're going to be playing Super Metroid Mondays and Thursdays until we finish it. We'll put aside Metal Gear Solid until we have a need to take a break from whatever it is we're doing. Whether it's, Metroid or Zelda or whatever. But we'll come back to Metroid, or Metal Gear Solid eventually. Don't worry. I have too much fun with that game to just be like, well, we're not playing that anymore. Chuck it out the window or something. Tuesday, we will hopefully have another podcast with Zeph. We didn't record yesterday because of this whole sinus situation that I'm dealing with. It was pretty bad last night, so we ended up skipping the podcast just because my asthma was really, really not happy. And it's just like, you know what? Heck with it. We'll take a week off. I mean, it's not the first time. And then next week when we come back to this on Wednesday, we're going to look at how to do an app in JavaScript. So, that's what's coming up this next week. I'm getting out of here because I got to go eat some lunch, and then I got to go get the kid from school because, yay, school. He's been having a great time there. Practically ran to school today. Like, he was in such a hurry to get there. I don't know what they're doing, but man, is he ever excited for it. Anyway, I'll keep you guys all up to date on what's going on with the photo studio and all the other various projects I have going on as I make progress on them. And thank you all for watching. Thank you all for joining me, and hopefully we'll see you next time. Have a great day.